my privilege this evening to introduce Dr. Mary Berge, and she is a licensed clinical psychologist with over 25 years of eclectic experience. She received her undergraduate training from the California State University of Long Beach and her PhD from the California School of Professional Psychology, Los Angeles. Dr. Berge is a highly trained in individual, family, and couples therapy, court-ordered psychotherapy, general and forensic psychological assessment, as well as fitness for duty and work-related evaluations. She works with a variety of populations and diagnostic issues such as depression, anxiety, family problems, relationship issues, and trauma experiences. She also has notable experience working with first responders and military populations. Tonight, our topic is staying sane during COVID-19 and other stressful times. Welcome, Dr. Berge. Thank you for being with ACAP this evening.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. I want to thank you for inviting me. This topic that we're talking about tonight, of course, is very timely. But as I've given this seminar to several people recently, some people are getting really used to COVID-19 and the pandemic and being quarantined and such. So even if that's not your issue, I want you to think tonight about whatever it is that might be stressing you out. It could be politics. It could be COVID-19. It might be just social unrest. Whatever it is, consider that, because all of the tips that I'm going to give you today really are good for whatever it is that might be stressing you out, causing you anxiety, or even depression. All right, so let's jump right in. So first, when I typically get a patient coming to visit me and they sit down on my couch, I always like to assess, just how much information do they really have about their situation? Because typically speaking, information is power. But in the case of everything that we're experiencing right now, COVID-19, politics, etc., information has actually become the source of stress, anxiety, and depression. So it's almost because of the amount of information, the overload amount of information that is pouring into our psyches and in our environment on a day-to-day basis. So my first piece of advice is to limit the amount of information you actually allow into your environment. I usually start my day with news. I do like to stay up on what's happening, right here, right now in my own county, for instance. I live in Cambria County in Pennsylvania. So I do want to know what's happening because things can change from day to day with COVID-19 and with the pandemic. But there's really not a lot of reason to check it throughout the day, to go to all the different news sources or the social media sites, because all of that is really just opinion at this point. It's just a lot of chatter. But I do like to check at the end of the day. However, my golden rule is no news media whatsoever after about 7 p.m. You see, your psyche really does need a few hours prior to sleeping, prior to bedtime, to sort of shake out all of the negativity of the day. Otherwise, that leaks and sneaks into your psyche and can be very disruptive to sleep, especially REM sleep, the REM sleep that you need in order to have nice dreams. So I do not allow any news or negative information into my environment if I can help it past about 7 o'clock at night. And that's what I recommend to all of my patients. Now, let's talk a little bit about schedule. If you're anything like me, since the pandemic hit, you have been maybe working from home, or at the very least, you were on this computer much more frequently than you were in the past. In the beginning of the pandemic, we saw a lot of unusual behavior with relation to schedule. People kind of just threw away their schedules. We really didn't know what to do with ourselves. All of a sudden, we were at home with our kids and our spouses, and so schedules kind of went out the window. People started binging Netflix all day and sitting on the couch all day. Gyms were closed. People were afraid to even go outside. But now I think we're sort of used to this new normal. And so we should have by now returned to some semblance of normal as far as our schedules are concerned. But again, if you're like me, you may be working strictly from a computer now. If that's the case, I want to recommend to you that you begin to chunk your day into 2-hour increments. So at the end of every 2 hours, you take a mental and physical break and you step away from the computer or step away from whatever it is you're doing and take a physical break. Science tells us that people who take breaks are actually more productive and more successful at reaching their goals at the end of the day than those people who just power through. Now, it's also important to engage your brain in some different sort of activity versus looking at a screen all day. So at every 2-hour increment, that 10-minute break, I try to do something different. Light exercise, listen to some music, read from even a novel, anything to engage some different part of my brain so that I'm not just staring at a blue screen all day. And again, this will help me to feel more rested and yet more productive at the end of my day. Now, it's also important, though, to write down your goals for the day. A written goal is actually a more attainable goal than just one that you're thinking of. Written goals will have, people who write down their goals have a higher percentage to actually reach them. So I usually use a Post-it note or a 3x5 card, and I write down my fitness goal for the day, my nutrition and my hydration goal, one Rotary international goal, since I do a lot of work with Rotary, and one work-related goal. And I always put them on my screen so that I can see my goal all throughout the day. I mentioned hydration. This is very important for mental health, believe it or not. When you're under a great amount of stress, anxiety, or depression, you can actually become dehydrated at a faster rate. So my goal is always between 64 and 80 ounces of water per day. So if you're not getting that, go out and find yourself a 32-ounce bottle that you can fill up twice in the day, and that's your starting point. And again, write that down so that you can see it all day long and reflect on that, and you'll have a greater chance of succeeding. All right, let's shift now and talk a little bit about the neurochemistry of mood. So there are 3 big chemicals in our system that are responsible for helping us to stay elevated when it comes to mood. And those are serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. There are others, but these are the 3 biggies. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter in the brain mostly, and it is best produced when you exercise. So as I mentioned before, those 10-minute breaks, if you can get some light exercise during those 10-minute breaks, you're going to be helping to elevate your mood throughout the day at those intervals. Even a brisk walk around the block, getting on your treadmill, even doing stretches like yoga style stretches will help to increase the serotonin production in your brain. So as much exercise, even in short bursts, is helpful to mood, positive mood. Oxytocin, well, I like to call that the hug drug, because oxytocin is best produced in your system when you are intimate with others, when you're hugging, when you're kissing, when you're intimate. You get a nice big burst of oxytocin. And that level of euphoria that you feel when oxytocin is released into the system can actually last for days. So I know it's tough to get lots of hugs during this time, but whomever you can hug safely, definitely try to get some of that in, because that helps to release the oxytocin in the system. Now, the third one, dopamine. This is a big one. Again, this is a neurotransmitter. And there are a couple of things that you can do to help improve your production of and release of dopamine into the brain. So the first is with gratitude, believe it or not. When we reflect on things that we are grateful for, our brain produces dopamine. And when we give gratitude away, when we tell other people why we are grateful for them, even more so is that dopamine stimulated in the brain. And not only do you stimulate dopamine in your own brain, but you are actually stimulating dopamine release in the person that you're telling that you're grateful for them, because they're receiving some sort of kindness from you, and that will help stimulate their dopamine. So this is a great way to, improve your own mood as well as the mood of others. Now, an even stronger way is by doing one physiological thing with your face. And this physiological facial expression increases dopamine production exponentially. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate it for you on my count of 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's it, the smile. So did you know that your brain has no idea whether a smile is faked, forced, or real? Your brain just feels the muscles do its thing, go into that smile feature, and it says, oh, she's smiling, let's start producing dopamine, and it does. And the interesting thing about the smile is, like the yawn, it's contagious. So when someone smiles at you, it's very hard not to smile back. So again, this is a way to not only improve your own dopamine production, but to stimulate it in other people as well, as by smiling at each other. I know we're wearing masks all the time, but whenever you get the opportunity to take your mask off, or even via Zoom, smile at people and watch how that makes you feel, because your brain senses it and it says, okay, let's start producing dopamine. Now, there are some things that there's one particular thing that can lower our serotonin and dopamine in our system, and that's actually anxiety. So here's how anxiety works in the brain. So in the back of your brain, on the left and the right hemisphere, you have 2 little almond-shaped things, and they're called the amygdala. And the amygdala, when you become worried or anxious, it lights up, and it sends a message to the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is the part of your brain that is responsible for turning on your fight, flight, or freeze mode. And it basically turns on all that autonomic nervous system response that you get when you're anxious. Adrenaline starts kicking in, you sweat, you get butterflies in your stomach, all those physiological things that you and I know as that tell us that we're feeling anxious. Anxiety is interesting because it has a very hard time existing or thriving when you're very present or mindful. However, when you are off in the future or in the past in your thoughts, anxiety thrives, because that is where you ruminate. When you're in the future, that's what I would call what if thinking. What if I get sick? What if someone I know gets COVID? What if I lose my job? What if I don't have enough to pay my bills? What if, what if, what if? Anxiety loves the what ifs. Now, it also enjoys the past, which would be your would've, could've, should've thinking. That's another place where you can get stuck ruminating, and anxiety enjoys that as well. So you don't really want to be off in your thoughts into the front, the future, or in the back, the past. You want to be as mindful and present in your life as possible. But hey, even the best of us worry and get anxious, right? So you can't always be mindfully present. So when that happens, I'm going to give you 2 techniques here that you can use to bring your anxiety levels down within minutes. So the first is with a deep breathing exercise. Now, the proper way to do a good deep breathing exercise is by doing these few things. First of all, your inhale must come through your nose. Then you hold your breath for a few seconds, and then you exhale through your mouth. So it's inhale, hold, exhale. And the inhale and the exhale should actually be very, very slow. And I'm going to demonstrate for you just how slow. Now, I do this every day with my patients, so I'm pretty good at it. So it'll be really slow, but if you practice, you'll get better at it. So, all right, here is a proper deep breath. Inhaling. Holding. Exhale. And check in with your body. There it is. I can feel when my body does this little kind of feeling. It's just a very relaxed sort of sensation that I get. Now, I like my patients to do 2 or 3 rounds of the deep breathing exercise, and it's important that you do it seated in a chair or on the couch or the floor, because you can get dizzy because you are doing very deep breathing. So oxygenation can cause you dizziness. So make sure you're seated. Try 2 or 3 in a row, whatever you're comfortable with, and check in after every breath. See if you can catch the physiology of relaxation so that you can begin to experience what it feels like to be relaxed as compared to tense. So deep breathing exercises are wonderful for knocking anxiety down. Now, if that doesn't work or you want something a little more powerful, there's a wonderful technique called bilateral sound therapy. And this is a technique that I'm actually using with almost all of my patients. It's not only great for reducing anxiety and panic attacks, it's wonderful for depression, anger and irritability, concentration, and wonderful for sleep. So here's how bilateral sound works. And I'm going to give you a link for it. I'm going to share my screen here in just a moment. But bilateral sound works like this. So you use headsets or earbuds and you plug in. You turn this engineered music or nature sounds on. And you'll notice that the sound goes in one ear and then the next, and then back to this ear and then back to this ear. So it's not coming both ears at the same time. And as that happens, you close your eyes. And you then track the sound with your eyes behind your closed eyelids. So your eyes are going left and right, left and right. And you can even almost feel the pattern of the music sometimes. And so your eyes and your ears are going. And as that happens, a very special type of brain wave actually formulates in the brain, crosses over the top of the 2 hemispheres, crossing that midline section of the 2 hemispheres, and that particular brainwave turns off the amygdalas, just like that. It's very powerful. And I do have a favorite resource, and I'm going to share my screen with you now. So my favorite resource, his name is David Grand. I do believe he's one of the sort of founding fathers of this technique. Now he calls it bilateral sound, but bilateral, it's all the same thing. You can get this for free on YouTube. You can also order it from Amazon if you prefer a CD, or go to his own website. You can get it on Spotify and iTunes. And this is one of my favorite albums. It's called Brain Spotting. And again, the author or the artist is David Grand. And lots of nature sounds and music mixed together. And it's just incredibly powerful. So this is my favorite. And this is the one I use with most of my patients. So take a screenshot of that or write that down. But again, you can just Google too, just Google bilateral sound or Google David Grand. You'll get all kinds of things that come up. And it's just wonderful. If you have any trouble closing your eyes because of vertigo or anything like that, do it with your eyes open. It's still just as great. You can even, use your hand to kind of move your eyes from side to side, to follow the music if you need to. So I like to use it for paperwork and things like that, even though my eyes aren't going back and forth. I find it still incredibly relaxing. And I also use it a lot for sleep. So bilateral sound, really powerful for, again, turning off that amygdala hypothalamus relay system. Okay, so my last tip of the day is about decision making. So yeah, there's a lot about what's happening right now in life that we certainly can't control. Politics, social unrest, civil unrest, COVID-19 pandemics, quarantines, all of that's really out of our control. But what we can control is whether or not we use this time for the better, because life is not on pause. It's just different right now. So at the end of this, will you have failed to use this time, or will you come out of this different in a better way? For me, very early on, I realized that I thought, oh, this will last 30 days, maybe 60. I was way off. So very early on, I realized I've got to do something different. So I come out of this better. So I set some goals for myself very early on, and fitness goals, health goals, personal achievement goals for my profession, that sort of thing. And it has really helped me to stay focused and to tolerate the time in a whole different way. So I want you to think about, how do you want to be different at the end of this? How do you want to be a better person? Will you be a better neighbor? Will you be, for me, a better Rotarian, a better psychologist, maybe? A better to myself? Will my health have changed? Things along those lines. How can you be different is up to you. That is within your control. I think there's some interesting positive things that are coming out of this time. There's some renaissance that I'm seeing amongst families, among friends and neighbors. We're certainly valuing things very differently. For instance, the human touch. That will be valued differently probably forever now. I used to go to the grocery store and let's just say this is an apple. I'd pick up an apple and I'd look at it and say, oh, there's a blemish on it, and I'd put it back. I don't do that anymore. I now think about, A, I picked it up, I should keep it. And B, now I'm thinking, who else touched it? So I'm washing my fruit and things like that like never before. All these things are different in our minds now. How I value the touch is different. I'm also a hugger. I can't wait to be able to hug people again. I miss that. And I didn't realize just how much I really valued that. And I do realize that now. So yes, will we be different at the end of this? Absolutely. But hopefully you'll be different for the better. That, my friends, is up to you. So I want to thank you all for having me. Those are my 5 hot tips of the day for staying sane during these very unusual times. And Jill and Amy, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite our audience to open the Q&A box and send any questions that they have. We are monitoring that, and so if the Q&A box is not your style or not your thing, there is also a way to raise your hand by clicking on the participant box, and then you'll see a window come up and you'll see the ability to click a button to raise your hand, and we can also keep an eye out for that as well. So we invite your questions. We welcome your comments if you have them, and you can open the chat box to do that. And while we wait, well, actually, I want to be sure to say thank you so much, Dr. Berge. This has been wonderful, and I have written down some notes myself. And so I'm hopeful that the audience also has taken some notes or have taken some ideas away from your talk. And so thank you so much. I have just a couple of slides that I want to share with the group. First, I want to say thank you so much to all of our group who have participated and attended this evening's program. We hope you found the information helpful and useful. And as I mentioned, I certainly did. I just want to share a little bit of information about next month's program. And actually, it's coming up towards the end of this month. And so you'll see that program is TIPA Snow. And in the focus of the topic, or the focus of that event, is dementia. And so we hope you'll join us for that. We will have information about how to post it very soon, if not already, on our website and on Facebook. We also have some other programs coming up, and we hope that you'll join us back here online whenever your schedule allows. So I see some questions coming in, and so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and get some questions to you. So the first question is, or comment that has come in, Valerie Carpenter says, wonderful tips that we can put to use immediately and put into practice. Thank you so much. And we have another comment along the same lines. Francis Hall says, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Berge for an excellent and practical insights and tips. So that's what else we have. I see some comments coming in the chat. Other participants say wonderful and helpful information. Thank you so much. Good tips, and this was fantastic. Great advice. And so I think there's consensus that this is not only inspirational, but really helpful. And my favorite part really was your demonstration of a smile. Because that is certainly something I don't do as much anymore. And so I appreciate being reminded that it is not only good to do just to practice my muscles, but it actually benefits my brain as well. So we have someone who has sent in a chat saying that she likes the brain spotting tools and loves nature sounds. Would you mind commenting at all about nature sounds?
Sure, I'd be happy to. You know, it's interesting. The bilateral sound, it comes in both. It's just whatever your preference is. A lot of them have water in them, and there's some that are like oceanic versus streams. So whatever when you're sort of, even when you're meditate or anything, whatever your like happy place is, you'll find whatever kind of nature sounds or music best fits that for you. And it's different for each person. I have some clients who can't stand the ocean sounds. They said it makes them feel like they're on a boat, you know, kind of swaying. And other people are like, oh, I feel like I'm at the beach, you know. So it's just really personal preference to what suits you. When I do meditation with my patients, I always ask them, I always say, you know, where do you want to be before we start this meditation? Is it at the beach? Is it in the forest? Is it on a mountain in a Tibetan monk, you know, temple? Wherever you want to be, then we can guide you through meditation there. And that sometimes will cue you into sort of what nature sounds work best for you. So if you're not sure, think about where your happy place is, where you feel most relaxed, or what you can just even imagine what would feel good for you. And that might help you to choose nature sounds that feel good. So again, you could probably even Google bilateral sound nature sounds, bilateral nature sounds, and see what fits. And you'll just have to experiment to see what really sets you off in a good way, off into that relaxation.
I love that all of your suggestions too are very low cost.
Oh gosh, yes.
And that we can all start doing it like right now.
Right.
No delay.
Yeah, I mean, the YouTube's free. You know, I've purchased some of the CDs from David Grand's website, and you're going to pay a lot more there, but you can just download it for free too. So yeah, all of this can be done from your home, your car. Don't close your eyes if you're driving. But you know, you can, sometimes I'll just have it on in my earbuds, even though I'm driving, and you know, it's just sort of soothing in the background. But mostly I just do it at my desk or in my bed, you know, wherever you are, this really works. Deep breathing, you can do it in the grocery store, you know, you're just anxious, just go to the meat department and breathe, you know, and just relax for a few minutes. Nobody's going to know you're doing it. So yeah, you can do it anywhere. So.
I love it. So we do have a few more comments and questions coming in. One is, what is your thought about hearing a bedtime story versus music to relax, particularly when trying to get to sleep?
Sure. You know, again, it's personal preference. I have a couple of patients who use stories. Some people like a repetitive story. They want to hear the same thing, so they tell themselves the same thing every single night, and they find that they fall asleep around the same point. That's sort of like counting sheep or other meditative processes. I have one that I don't even really have a name for it, but I'll say, let me think about 3 things I would imagine I could see in my bedroom, 3 things I can hear, 3 things I feel, and I'll go through that repetition over and over and over until I fall asleep. So storytelling is great. I mean, it works for children. It's soothing. Sometimes it's just a matter of hearing the voice. But again, you can tell yourself a story. You can make one up. But yeah, it's just really, it's personal preference, but storytelling works. It's something we're all, you know, very used to because of our childhood.
Mm-hmm. One more question that has arrived. There's sort of a lead in before we get to the question. I have friends that are drinking more. They say it is keeping them sane, but I'm concerned. Should we be concerned about our friends and family that are doing things that are a little more risky, like alcohol or recreational? I'm thinking she means prescriptions.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I think, if you're asking the question, then you probably already have some concern. Alcohol sales and drinking have been on the rise. It's been a secondary cost to COVID. People, when they're cooped up, tend to do things that they don't normally do. So yes, it can be very habit forming, very quickly. So if you have someone you love who's doing that sort of thing, I would say see if you can engage them in something more physical, physical activity of some sort, health, anything else that you can do to help them shift, partner up with them on it. Challenges work really good. I'm always challenging myself or accepting fitness challenges from my kind of fitness group on Facebook and things. Like right now, I'm trying to do a pull-up, believe it or not. And I'm this close, it's going to take me a couple more weeks and I'm going to have it. But those sorts of things have kept me focused and away from alcohol. I'm not going to, if I'm going to work out this evening, I'm not going to be drinking. So, if you can help shift people into more of a health mindset and do it by doing it with them, I think when we're partners in these areas, it's more helpful than just saying stop drinking. But absolutely, we're seeing a huge rise. And I think ultimately we're going to have some cost from that. Be candid and talk to these people, people you care about, you love. Just say, I notice you're drinking all the time. What can we do to get you off of that and into something healthier? Or prescription drugs, super, super dangerous, especially if mixed with alcohol.
Great, thank you. Do you have any suggestions for the kinds of foods that are best when trying to ease anxiety?
Well, yeah, processed foods are probably the worst. Anything that I think say that anything comes in like a bad wrapper. The healthier cost is a problem with this, of course, but the greener, the fresher, the less processed, the better. So absolutely, nutrition, the more processed, the more you're putting into your body chemicals and things that just aren't natural. So the more natural you can eat, water is a huge, huge factor. I cannot stress this enough. I wasn't a believer in this until about 2 years ago. And I've seen a huge change, not only in myself, but in, again, my fitness partners and patients who are consuming more water, who just feel better. Your skin's better, your sleep's better, the way you digest food is better. And when all of that is better, you feel better with regard to mental health. So the more, I don't want to say organic, but the more natural you can eat, the less processed, the better. Carbohydrates are, mostly sugar, so I try to limit them. I'm not a no carb kind of person, but healthy carbs are better for you. Lots of greens. So, don't overeat, just, think about, I think we all consume more than any of us really need. So less is more.
I think a lot of us too during this time, because food is right there, we're home, we're not out and about, and it's a lot easier to just pick up something to eat. I heard somebody call it the COVID-15 instead of COVID-19 because people are gaining 15 pounds from being
Yeah. We started baking bread in our house because everyone was baking bread. So we're like, let's bake bread. And we did that for like a month and I gained like 5 pounds. So lost it again, thankfully. but again, it was just the shock of everything. Absolutely. And I'm seeing some things come in here about kids and about shorter days, colder temperatures. Let me attack the kid one here first. The advice for children experiencing anxiety, isolation. The thing, would it be the same? It is the same for kids. Same recommendations for kids. You can teach them these things. Bilateral sound works great for them too. But I want to stress one thing with children. They're like sponges. Whatever you are doing, they are going to reflect. So if you're anxious, depressed, or stressed, you children will be anxious, stressed, and depressed. They're little sponges, so they soak up everything. If you're on your phone all the time, your kids will be on your phone all the time. If you're demonstrating healthy behaviors, your kids will be healthy. So the more you can role model for them how, you know, your own behavior and your own mental health, the better off they're going to be. And just check with yourself and check your own sort of psyche before you have conversations with them about, you know, how to be cautious and proceed in life, even though we have to be a little safer and such, so that they're not picking up on any anxiety within you. So be in a good place when you're having your conversations with kids. But again, confront it compassionately and make a plan. Set a plan and say, let's get this taken care of. And how do we think the shorter days and colder temperatures will affect folks? So I live in Johnstown, and have you heard it's like the second darkest place on earth? It is. And I'm from sunny Southern California, and I actually stay here. So I have definitely seen how cold weather and darkness is affecting my patients all the time. You now can purchase these little lamps that are about this big that are mood lamps. They're sun lamps. You know, they don't tan you, but they're sunlights for mood, and that's really helpful if you get seasonal affective disorder. You feel more blue in the winter time, which is a little natural. But again, embrace it. We are what we think. So if you think bad thoughts about winter, you're going to feel bad about winter. So see if you can change your cognitions about the way that the earth and the weather is happening. It's going to happen every year, and embrace it and find a different way to think about it so that you feel differently about it. It does affect us. So I like to say, you know, okay, winter, it's a time to hunker down. Maybe more Netflix for me, you know, less outdoor activity, less barbecuing, but maybe, you know, I do more cooking of soups or something. So I shift my mindset so I don't have to say it's a bad thing. It's just different. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. So remember, if you can take away one thing, we are what we think. So if you can change your cognitions about things, you can change the way you feel about them.
Thank you. I think we've covered all of them.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight, and if you need me in the future, I'm happy to help. But in between now and then, stay sane and stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.